Imagine landing at a United States airport after a long international flight. You have your passport ready, your carry permit is valid in your home state, you legally own a firearm, you believe you followed every rule. But then an officer pulls you aside and tells you that one small detail in your paperwork, your travel route, or even the way Maryland interprets concealed carry laws could suddenly put you at risk of serious legal trouble. For many people, that sounds impossible. But here is what most people still do not realize. A major legal battle is now growing around concealed carry restrictions in the state of Maryland, and gun rights advocacy groups are aggressively challenging rules they believe violate constitutional protections. And while this story is centered around Maryland, the outcome could eventually affect travelers, gun owners, permit holders, interstate transportation laws, and even how states enforce firearm restrictions across the country. This is not just another political argument. This case touches real people, travelers, workers, families driving across state lines, security contractors, truck drivers, business owners, even tourists passing through unfamiliar states. Because in America, one of the biggest problems many people face is this. A firearm that is perfectly legal in one state can suddenly become a criminal issue the moment you cross into another. And according to advocacy groups now fighting Maryland's restrictions, that legal confusion is becoming more dangerous, more aggressive, and more unpredictable. The challenge comes as multiple organizations argue that Maryland's concealed carry framework imposes restrictions that go too far after recent Supreme Court decisions expanded protections related to public carry rights. For years, many states operated under systems where local officials had broad authority to decide who could carry concealed firearms. In some areas, permits were extremely difficult to obtain, unless applicants could prove a special need. Then came a major turning point. The United States Supreme Court decision in the Bruin case changed the legal landscape dramatically. That ruling argued that ordinary law-abiding citizens have a constitutional right to carry firearms publicly for self-defense under the Second Amendment. After that decision, states across America began rewriting laws, adjusting permit systems, and creating new restrictions designed to comply with the ruling while still maintaining public safety policies. And this is where Maryland entered the national spotlight. Critics now say Maryland responded by creating layers of new restrictions that in practice still make lawful concealed carry extremely difficult in many situations. Gun rights organizations argue that Maryland established broad, sensitive places restrictions that prohibit carrying firearms in large categories of public areas. According to the lawsuits and legal complaints being discussed, opponents claim these restrictions effectively block lawful permit holders from carrying in many ordinary environments. Supporters of the restrictions strongly disagree. State officials and public safety advocates argue these laws are necessary to protect crowded public spaces, reduce violence risks, and prevent dangerous confrontations. And that tension is exactly why this legal battle matters so much, because both sides believe they are protecting constitutional rights. One side says the government is limiting lawful self-defense. The other side says the government is protecting public safety. And somewhere in the middle are millions of ordinary people trying to understand what the rules actually are. This is where many people make a mistake. They assume having a permit automatically protects them everywhere. It does not. In the United States, concealed carry laws vary dramatically from state to state. Some states recognize permits from many other states through reciprocity agreements. Others recognize very few. Some states allow permitless carry. Others maintain strict licensing systems with extensive restrictions. And Maryland has historically been considered one of the stricter states regarding firearm regulations. That creates a major issue for travelers. Imagine driving from a state with relatively broad concealed carry protections into Maryland without fully understanding local rules. You stop for food, fuel, or a hotel. You believe you are complying with federal transportation protections, but state-level restrictions may still create legal exposure depending on how the firearm is stored, transported, or carried. Most travelers do not realize this until it becomes a problem, and advocacy groups now challenging Maryland's restrictions say the system remains too confusing, too restrictive, and too vulnerable to inconsistent enforcement. One major concern involves so-called sensitive locations. These are places where firearms may be prohibited, even for licensed concealed carry holders. Examples can include schools, government buildings, certain public gatherings, and in some cases, private businesses, unless permission is specifically granted. The controversy is about how broad those categories should be. Opponents argue that if too many places are labeled sensitive locations, then lawful concealed carry becomes almost meaningless because permit holders effectively have nowhere practical to carry legally. Supporters argue the opposite. They believe densely populated environments and public gathering spaces require additional safeguards. What happens next surprises a lot of people. This issue is no longer limited to local politics. Similar legal fights are happening across multiple states, and courts are now being forced to interpret how far governments can go when regulating public carry after recent Supreme Court rulings. That means Maryland's legal battle could eventually influence broader national standards. And if courts issue conflicting decisions in different states, the issue could climb even higher through the federal court system again. For ordinary people, this creates uncertainty, especially for those who travel frequently. Truck drivers crossing multiple states every week, business travelers flying with declared firearms through airport systems, families relocating between states, former military personnel, security professionals, hunters, sport shooters, and even immigrants or visa holders who may already be navigating complex legal systems while trying to understand American firearm laws. This is not just a recommendation. In some cases, it is federal law. Firearm transportation rules can involve both state and federal regulations at the same time. For example, federal law may provide certain protections for transporting unloaded firearms between lawful locations under specific conditions. But state and local interpretations can still create disputes during traffic stops, airport screenings, or law enforcement encounters. And airports are one area where confusion becomes especially dangerous. Many people assume declaring a firearm at check-in automatically protects them legally. Not always. The Transportation Security Administration, or TSA, has specific procedures for transporting firearms in checked baggage. Firearms generally must be unloaded, locked in hard-sided containers, and declared properly. But here is the problem. Even if federal airline transportation rules are followed correctly, state laws at your departure point, destination, or connecting location may still matter. This small mistake can create serious problems later. There have been cases across the country where travelers encountered legal issues after diverted flights, unexpected overnight stays, or misunderstandings about local possession laws. And that is one reason this Maryland fight is drawing national attention. People are increasingly worried about the gap between what they think is legal and what state authorities may actually enforce. Now, to be clear, courts have not universally struck down Maryland's restrictions. The legal process is ongoing, complicated, and highly contested. Some judges may support portions of the restrictions. Others may question whether certain rules go beyond constitutional limits, and legal outcomes could change over time through appeals. That uncertainty is exactly why advocacy organizations are pushing aggressively now. They believe the current moment, after recent Supreme Court rulings, gives them an opportunity to reshape firearm policy nationwide. Meanwhile, supporters of stricter regulations warn that weakening restrictions too much could increase risks in crowded public spaces and make law enforcement situations more dangerous. So regardless of where someone stands politically, one thing is obvious: the stakes are extremely high. Because this debate is no longer theoretical, it affects real decisions people make every day. Can you legally stop for gas while transporting a firearm? Can you enter a restaurant? Can you leave a secured firearm in a vehicle? Can you carry in mixed-use commercial spaces? Can you cross state lines safely? Can a permit from one state protect you somewhere else? These questions matter because misunderstandings can lead to arrests, confiscations, expensive legal battles, denied permits, or permanent complications affecting future firearm ownership rights. And for non-citizens, visa holders, or permanent residents, legal trouble involving firearms can sometimes trigger even more serious immigration consequences, depending on the situation. Many immigrants do not realize that certain criminal charges, even without convictions, can complicate immigration processes dramatically. That is why legal experts consistently recommend extreme caution for anyone unfamiliar with state firearm laws, especially in states with complex regulatory systems. One important reality often gets ignored in online discussions. Internet advice is not legal advice. A social media post, forum comment, or viral video may oversimplify laws that are actually very technical. And firearm laws can change quickly after court rulings. What was legal last year may not be legal today. What is allowed in one county may be restricted elsewhere, and enforcement practices can vary significantly. This is where responsible preparation becomes critical. Before traveling with any firearm, experts recommend checking official state government resources, reviewing reciprocity agreements carefully, confirming transportation requirements, and understanding local restrictions at both the state and municipal level. People should also understand the difference between possession, transportation, open carry, and concealed carry, because those categories can have different legal standards. Many people incorrectly treat them as the same thing. They are not. And another major issue involves private property rules. Even in states with broader carry protections, private businesses may still impose restrictions on firearms inside their properties. Some states require visible signage. Others enforce restrictions differently. Failing to understand those rules can escalate simple misunderstandings into legal confrontations. This is why legal analysts say the Maryland case represents something bigger than one state. It reflects a growing national struggle over how constitutional rights, public safety concerns, state authority, and modern court rulings will coexist moving forward. And honestly, the courts may still take years to fully settle these questions. In the meantime, ordinary people remain caught in the middle, trying to avoid mistakes that could change their lives permanently. So here is the practical reality. If you own firearms, travel between states, or plan to transport weapons through airports or highways, you cannot rely on assumptions anymore. You need updated information, you need official guidance, and you need to understand that laws may change faster than many people realize, especially now. Because as these legal battles continue, more states could rewrite restrictions, expand sensitive location definitions, tighten transportation rules, or face new constitutional challenges. And the outcome could reshape how concealed carry works across America for years to come. Right now, the safest approach is preparation. Know the laws before you travel. Check official state resources directly. Understand permit reciprocity carefully. Review airline and TSA transportation rules. And if you are uncertain, speak with a qualified attorney familiar with firearm law in the states involved. That may sound excessive to some people, but compared to the risk of criminal charges, confiscation, or immigration complications, preparation is far cheaper than a legal mistake. At the end of the day, this story is not just about Maryland. It is about how quickly legal environments can change in America. It is about how ordinary people can accidentally find themselves in complicated situations, and it is about why staying informed matters now more than ever. If you found this update helpful, stay informed, follow official legal developments closely, and share this video with anyone who travels, owns firearms, or may be affected by changing state laws. And subscribe for more accurate updates, practical guidance, and important developments that could affect your rights, your travel plans, and your future.